Alas, there is time for ruminating. Hello, and welcome to another Ruminations episode. Those of you that are sort of new here, this is where I just talk about just, let's say a myriad of things. Sometimes it's on one subject, sometimes other times it's different ones in one video, and such is the case with this one. There's different subjects in this video, so the subjects are going to be the silent film actor Harold Lloyd, the French knight. There's like freaky. Look into him, if you dare. There's like basically a medieval serial killer. Let's just put it that way. Gilda Ray, and there's also there's a few more. Some Doctor Who stuff, specifically on the First Doctor and the Masters, boyhood lives, basically. And also Offer of Mercia, the Muslim, the Muslim Anglo-Saxon king. So it's basically and this is always an open discussion. I always leave the comments open. This is why I don't, when I'm uploading, this is why I don't agree to this video is for kids thing, because people can't comment on that. Ooh, excuse me. Anyway, so I don't think there's been, as far as I know, or many of a Harold Lloyd biopic film or series. I mean, would you want to see it as a film or a TV series? I think a film would probably get peak attention at first. I know there was one about at least one about Buster Keaton somewhere. I mean, who would you, for Harold Lloyd in the biopic, who would you cast, apart from, yours truly? Just putting it out there as a little jerk. I've got the glasses for it though. Well, sort of. Anyway, who would you, for Harold Lloyd in the film biopic, who would you cast? Who would be almost uncanny doing like his mannerisms, especially because it's not just about. I mean, I have to look into the man himself more, but especially for when he's doing his movies, his slapstick stuff, and he was one of those. He was one of those proper, like, you could argue he was like one of the first stuntmen. Yeah, to the point of there's a video you can check on YouTube as well, where he does sort of like I'm not sure if it's a prank or they just left that in, where he's shaking the hand of an actress in a film set, and his hand comes off, and it's because he blew his hand off. I think it was something to do with some dynamite. He had to have a wooden prosthetic. Maybe it wasn't his entire hand, but it was something like his middle two fingers, and they came off. I think it's about time we saw. I think that's the thing. There's film biopics that are a bit like. There's too many of them. Well, the kinds of film biopics, like, for example, there's been a slew of, like, movie star ones, Marilyn Monroe, musicians, Freddie Mercury, Elton John, Elvis, like technically four, like 2 to 4, 5 times in a row. Although I did enjoy Priscilla from the perspective of Priscilla Presley. It is quite hard to watch though. The Elvis biopic miniseries with Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, aka Henry VIII from the Tudors, that's quite decent. And I haven't watched Elvis with Austin Butler either, but I was kind of put off in trailers and stuff because it's, of course, Tom Hanks has to give, not to discredit Tom Hanks. I think it's just the audience thing, where he has to give Colonel Parker what TV tropes calls a funtic accent, funny foreigner kind of accent. When he was Dutch, but by the time, even years before, by the time he met Elvis, he pretty much just virtually lost his native Dutch accent. It's the same kind of line as why, like, sort of a more extreme example of why, like, for example, British actors Gary Oldman and Christian Bale had to retrain to sound like themselves again, pretty much. And yeah, blonde. This stuff like that. I mean, I like the film, but it seems to be the biopics things of certain things, like, film stars and musicians. Bohemian Rhapsody, Rocket Man, and the Amy Winehouse biopic. I'm in two minds about watching that. Anyway, as I say, but I think, we've had Buster Keaton biopic, so and Laurel and Hardy as well, played brilliantly by John C. Reilly and Steve Coogan. Stan and Ollie, which I've yet to sort of watch properly. The old-timey kind of looking into the old-timey kind of silent film actors. I think Harold Lloyd deserves one if he doesn't have one, but I think he deserves at least one more biopic. So if feel free to chew the fat in the comments about who your ideal Harold Lloyd in a biopic would be. Right, next one. Doctor Who. Well, the Doctors and the Masters' friendship when they were growing up in the academy. I think I would really like to see either like a big finished series or an actual actual series, or it'd be cool if somehow someone did like a fan film for either like Vimeo or YouTube, kind of like unofficial thing, kind of like that one YouTuber that did the War Doctor Begins short film. That's quite good. See if I can find that and put that as a reference, maybe. But yeah, how would you plan it out? Who would you see as the two best friends? Who would you cast as, say, the Master's father? Because he's mentioned the Master's mentions his dad in The End of Time Part 1 or 2, one of those. And then in one of the Big Finish shorts, Geoffrey Beavers' master with the burnt cloak mentions his parents, and he kind of implies that they were a bit cold and unfeeling and stuffy, and that's where kind of him and the Doctor's friendship kind of blossomed, I guess. Master was a troubled, lonely, kind of upper class kid, and the Doctor was always, according to at least Listen and the Timeless Children, he was always pretty much going off by himself if he wasn't with the master getting up to like pranks and stuff. He'd and also this refers to the story of the vampires. I've been watching the classic ones back. The Fourth Doctor tells Romana about the old hermit that he was friends with as a boy. He tells the story of the great vampires. So he go off and he talk to him, and also Pertwee's Doctor mentioned that he'd go and talk to the old hermit when he was in one of his troubled moods, or he wanted to get away from like the bullying and people not making time for him or whatever. Yeah, I don't know what I'd call the series really, but anyway, who would you cast? Because I was thinking at first the boy, the child actor from Listen as the first Doctor, but he'd be like 16 now, so it's hard to think about that. And then there was the 8-year-old master in the end of time, who would be somewhere around my age now, and it's not like you can get him for anything anyway. Just look him up. I'm not going to say. So yeah, it's about getting the right look. I was actually weirdly thinking for the first Doctor, maybe, depending on how good he is with accents and stuff, or if they somehow did this kind of thing years ago, the lad that plays Joe from Modern Family probably would suit the look of the boy first Doctor. In fact, you probably could cast him as like when they're teenagers and growing up. It doesn't just have to be when they're little. Right, and then there's Gilderay. Now, if you know about him, you know about him, and I suppose who would you cast in the role? It's pretty much who would you cast pretty much in this, or and finishing off with like an idea of who I would cast as well. But would the kind of series be made? Would they be able to delve into the crimes of Gilderay for TV? Maybe not. Maybe not. It's probably if you know about the buggered upness of Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian and the description it goes into in there, that's probably pronounced unfilmable. I've heard from friends, fellow kind of effed up book nerds, that for example, the old Naked Lunch is supposed to be reputedly unfilmable too, but I think they might have done a film of that. I'm not really too sure. But Blood Meridian, apart from a few fan trailers and stuff and short films on YouTube, they're unofficially. I don't think they'd be ever filmed because of Judge Holden, what he does, and even just not him, just the graphic detail to go into with all the cowboys and Indians and Mexicans and village, small town, frontier town, village, whatever paranoia they go into, where there's a passage in the book I know of where somehow the judge convinces an entire townspeople to essentially lynch this priest, and they have nobody has any basis on any so-called proof of him doing awful stuff, but somehow he's able to do all that. There's all sorts of awful stuff and graphic violence. So maybe in the same line, the French serial killer Chevalier, let's say, Gilderay, that would be that. I think it would be almost Judge Holden levels of messed up, and maybe that would be unfilmable. Maybe it'd have to be like a standalone horror film somehow, or horror series where it's not released because for example, horror films explicitly don't go for into probably won't go into the be sold to like the shown at the Cannes Film Festival or some Oscars ceremony thing or whatever. So no, that'll be a horror film probably if it be ever filmed. And also, yeah, speaking of who I would cast in things, in a thing, there's as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Offer of Mercia, who was reputedly Muslim, and there's that book about where he's claimed to be black. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't, maybe partly, but he was a Muslim. So, and I know there were like many at that time in, I think it was 700 and something AD, where a lot of the Muslims were Moors, North African, kind of rich nomady types, I suppose. They're known for going across Spain, Portugal, southern Italy, Algeria, all that kind of area. Some of them later on managed to live in my neck of the woods, probably earlier than you think. But there's like, for example, I did a video on John Blank, the Tudor court trumpeter, he'd be technically a Spaniard in this day and age. And also there's evidence of black women living in York not too long after the Romans left. They stayed on for a bit, but backtracking back to the Muslim thing, they don't necessarily have to be completely black. His ethnicity, his ethnic background is probably as sort of vague or flip-floppy as, say, Altair's from Assassin's Creed, where he seems more ambiguously like a white guy in his first game, but then you see him in 2 in Revelations, and he looks probably more like his dad did. He's supposed to be. It said in the backstory, for example, digressing, getting off topic a bit. He said his mother's supposed to be Christian, and it was just called Maud or something. But it's no really confirmation as to whether she was like a white woman, like Altair's wife Maria, who was a Templar from England. I think it's just I think maybe it's just a faith thing, because he does look more Arab / Middle Eastern significantly when he's an old man in Revelations. So that's ambiguous too, and ambiguous with going back to Offer. And you might be wondering why the thumbnail is how it is, with Riz Ahmed at the aka Carlton Drake for all you Marvel and Venom nerds out there. I think he would suit the look as the Muslim king, some sort of vaguely ethnic, kind of vaguely brown, carrying the kind of faith thing. Actually, maybe thinking about it now as well, bit tangentially related, and I did a video that partly concerned Kingdom of Heaven. Maybe he would make a good Saladin now, actually. But I think one of my main casting idea for Offer of Mercy, if we ever did a series about him, probably like a BBC thing. I think he would fit the bill because of the background of his belief systems, and he was sort of a semi-legendary figure anyway, because people rewrote things or didn't know that much about him, other than he was from Mercia, which is Northumberland now. So yeah, that's it for Ruminations. Sorry for all the stuttering and stuff. I just swigged 2 cinnamon coffees at once, decaf and caffeinated. Also had a chug of water. It's a bit humid. Understatement. And I'm lying on my stomach doing this to get some leg room and so on and so forth. So yeah, as is the point of a Ruminations episode. Anytime viewers, my lovely lot of viewers, feel like it, if you ever feel like it, just feel free to, as one of my supply tutors way back in high school once said, old chinwag, down in the comments section. So yeah, that's it. I'll stop rabbiting on, as Chaz and Dave would say, and get to uploading this and so on and so forth. And I'm rabbiting. I'm actually rabbiting. Anyway, remember to like, subscribe, comment. I'll put, if I remember or can be bothered, put the references that I mentioned in the description of this video. And as Winnie the Pooh says, TTFN, ta-ta for now. Or is that Tigger?